Imagine a world swallowed by fear, a civilization where one man's command meant life or death, where soldiers marched at a whisper, and entire nations bowed without question. Picture towering palaces, golden thrones, armies stretching beyond the horizon, all under the control of a single ruler. A king whose power seemed limitless. A king whose authority appeared unquestionable. The people obeyed him. The elites praised him. The masses feared him. And slowly, power began to poison his heart. Pride settled into his chest. Arrogance wrapped around his soul. Until one day, intoxicated by control and blinded by delusion, he uttered words so dangerous, so blasphemous, that the heavens bore witness to them, "I am your Lord." This was not merely oppression. This was not just tyranny. This was open rebellion against the Lord of the worlds. He believed his kingdom made him eternal. He believed his throne made him divine. He believed that no one could challenge him. But he forgot one eternal truth: above every king is the King. Above every throne is Al-Malik. Above every power is Allah. This is the Inspired Muslim, where we revive powerful stories from the Quran and Islamic history to awaken hearts, strengthen Iman, and remind ourselves who truly holds power. If you are new here, subscribe now and join a growing community seeking knowledge, reflection, and spiritual strength. Because the story you are about to hear is not just ancient history. It is a lesson for every age. It is a warning for every arrogant heart. It is a reminder that no matter how powerful a tyrant becomes, Allah is greater. Tonight, we uncover the chilling story of Nimrod, the ruler who dared to challenge Allah, and how his unimaginable arrogance was shattered in the most unexpected way. Stay until the end, because what destroyed him will leave you speechless, and remind you that the smallest creation of Allah can overpower the mightiest king. The rise of a king who forgot his place. After the great flood of Prophet Nuh, may Allah's peace be upon him, generations passed. Humanity began to rebuild. Cities rose from dust. Civilizations expanded. And among them emerged a ruler whose ambition was as vast as his empire. His name was Nimrod. He ruled over the land of Babylon, a kingdom of wealth, architecture, and growing influence. Under his leadership, cities flourished. Trade expanded. Armies strengthened. People admired his power. At first, he was just a king. But power is a dangerous test. The more victories he won, the more obedience he received, the more he began to believe that his authority came from himself. When people bowed, he enjoyed it. When people praised him, he absorbed it. When people feared him, he fed on it. And slowly, something dark grew inside him. Arrogance. He began to see himself not as a servant of Allah, but as a master over people's destiny. He watched how life seemed to flourish under his rule and concluded that he controlled it. He saw criminals executed and prisoners freed and convinced himself that he controlled death. And then the unthinkable happened. He declared himself a god. Not quietly. Not symbolically. Openly. He demanded worship. He demanded obedience beyond politics. He demanded devotion. And the people, frightened, weak, attached to worldly comfort, submitted. The land fell into shirk. Idols were raised. Truth was buried beneath fear. But when falsehood rises high, Allah raises truth higher. And that truth was about to be born. A prophecy that shook the throne. One night, it is said that Nimrod saw a dream. A star rose brightly in the sky, overpowering all others, and its light spread across the horizon. Interpreters warned him. A child will be born in your kingdom. And he will destroy your authority. The mighty king, who claimed to be a god, was shaken by the possibility of a baby. Fear entered the heart that once claimed divinity. And fear makes tyrants cruel. He ordered that every newborn boy be killed. Imagine the screams of mothers. Imagine fathers helplessly watching soldiers enter their homes. Imagine the silence that followed. All because a king feared losing power. But no decree can override the decree of Allah. That child was born. Protected. Chosen. His name was Ibrahim, peace be upon him. While Nimrod tightened his grip on the world, Allah was preparing the one who would shatter his illusion. Crown: who was Nimrod? Expanded section for narration. Who was Nimrod? He was not just an ordinary ruler. He was one of the earliest and most powerful kings to rise after the time of Prophet Nuh, may Allah's peace be upon him, during a period when humanity was rebuilding civilization. As nations began forming and cities began expanding, Nimrod emerged as a dominant force in the region of ancient Mesopotamia. Widely associated with Babylon. He was a builder of cities. A commander of vast armies. A ruler whose influence stretched across lands and tribes. Under his reign, society appeared organized, structured, and strong. Agriculture developed. Trade routes expanded. Architecture advanced. From the outside, it looked like success. But history shows us something important: worldly success is not always a sign of righteousness. The more authority Nimrod gained, the more his heart changed. Absolute power began to distort his perception of reality. When people bowed before him in respect, he began to crave that bowing. When people praised him for prosperity, he began to believe he was the source of it. When he punished criminals or spared prisoners, he started convincing himself that he controlled life and death. And that is where arrogance turned into disbelief. Instead of recognizing that kingship is a trust from Allah, he claimed it as proof of his own divinity. Instead of humbling himself before the Creator, he elevated himself above creation. He did not merely act like a tyrant. He declared himself a god. He demanded worship. He demanded devotion. He demanded that people see him not just as a ruler, but as a lord. This was not political oppression alone. This was spiritual corruption. The society under Nimrod became drowned in idol worship and fear-based obedience. Truth was suppressed. Questioning authority meant danger. Faith in Allah was replaced with submission to a man. And yet, what makes his story truly powerful is this. Despite his armies, despite his wealth, despite his claim of divinity, he was still just a human being. He ate. He slept. He aged. He feared. And soon, he would face a young man who had no army, no palace, no throne, but had something far greater. Faith in Allah. That young man was Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him. And their confrontation would become one of the most powerful lessons in history, a reminder that no matter how high arrogance rises, it always falls. 2. The rise of his arrogance. Power is a test. And for Nimrod, it became a trap. At the beginning of his reign, he was simply a ruler like many before him. He governed lands, commanded soldiers, and expanded his kingdom. His people saw strength in him. They saw leadership. They saw authority. But as his empire grew, something else grew with it. Pride. When crops flourished, he believed it was because of him. When enemies were defeated, he believed it was by his brilliance. When people prospered, he believed he was the source of their success. Day after day, people bowed before him. They praised him in public gatherings. They stood in silence when he entered the room. No one questioned him. No one challenged him. And when no one reminds a powerful person of Allah, they begin to forget. Nimrod stopped seeing himself as a servant of the Most High. Instead, he began seeing himself as the highest. He observed that he could pardon a prisoner, and the man would live. He could order an execution, and the man would die. And slowly, a dangerous thought formed in his mind. If I decide who lives and who dies, then I control life and death. That thought did not come all at once. It grew quietly, like a seed watered by praise and unchecked authority. Arrogance rarely begins loudly. It whispers first. Then it convinces. Then it corrupts. Soon, Nimrod no longer saw his throne as a responsibility. He saw it as proof of superiority. He no longer ruled with accountability. He ruled with ego. His heart hardened. The remembrance of Allah faded from his consciousness. And eventually, he crossed the line that no human being should ever cross. He declared himself divine. He demanded worship, not just obedience. He demanded devotion, not just loyalty. He wanted people to see him not merely as a king, but as a lord. Fear spread through the land. People complied outwardly to protect their lives. Idolatry increased. Truth was silenced. Those who believed in Allah kept their faith hidden. This is what arrogance does. It blinds a person to their own weakness. It makes temporary power feel eternal. It convinces a mortal man that he is untouchable. But no matter how high arrogance rises, it always forgets one reality. Allah allows power as a test, not as a guarantee. And when arrogance reaches its peak, the fall is near. 3. The birth of a threat. Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him. Just when arrogance had reached its peak. Just when Nimrod believed his throne was secure. Allah wrote a decree that would shake his kingdom. It began with a dream. It is reported in Islamic tradition that Nimrod saw a disturbing vision, a brilliant star rising in the sky, outshining all others. Its light spread across the horizon, overpowering the darkness. Troubled and restless, he summoned the astrologers and fortune-tellers of his court. Their interpretation terrified him. A child will be born in your kingdom. He will destroy your authority. He will break your religion. He will end your rule. The king who claimed to be a god was now afraid of a baby. Fear exposes the weakness arrogance tries to hide. Instead of reflecting, instead of humbling himself before Allah, Nimrod chose brutality. He issued a horrifying command. Every newborn boy must be killed. Soldiers spread across the land. Homes were invaded. Mothers clutched their infants in desperation. Cries filled the streets. Innocent blood was spilled, all to protect a throne made of dust. But when Allah decrees something, no army can stop it. In the midst of fear and oppression, a child was born. His mother, sensing the danger, hid her pregnancy. According to classical narrations, when the time came, she placed her newborn in secrecy to protect him from the king's soldiers. While Nimrod believed he controlled life and death, Allah was preserving the very child who would expose his false claim. That child was Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him. He was not born in a palace. He was not surrounded by soldiers. He did not come with wealth or status. He came with something greater. He came with truth. While Nimrod was building towers and strengthening armies, Allah was nurturing a prophet. While the king tightened his grip on power, Allah was preparing the one who would shatter his illusion with a single sentence. The tyrant feared losing his throne. But he did not realize, this was never about a throne. This was about Tawheed. This was about proving that no king, no matter how powerful, can compete with the Lord of the heavens and the earth. And soon, the child Nimrod feared would grow into the man who would stand before him, calm, fearless, unwavering, and challenge him not with weapons, but with truth. 4. The famous debate between Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, and Nimrod. After growing into a man guided by Allah, Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, fearlessly called his people to worship the one true God. He challenged the idols Nimrod and his people revered, openly denouncing their falsehood. This boldness could not go unnoticed by the king, who had grown accustomed to unquestioned obedience. Eventually, the confrontation came. Nimrod, seated on his throne, surrounded by guards and advisors, questioned Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, with arrogance dripping from every word. "Who is your Lord?" Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, responded calmly and firmly. "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death." Nimrod smirked. He believed he could prove the futility of Ibrahim's faith. Raising his hand, he demonstrated his so-called power. "I give life and cause death." To prove his claim, he ordered the release of one prisoner while executing another. "See," he said. "I control life and death." But Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, did not waver. He answered with divine wisdom that struck at the very heart of Nimrod's arrogance. "Indeed, Allah brings the sun from the east. So bring it from the west." Silence fell over the court. The mighty king, who claimed divinity and boasted of controlling life and death, had no answer. He could not move the sun. He could not reverse the laws of creation. His throne and armies, once symbols of absolute power, were meaningless in the face of divine truth. The Quran highlights this moment in Surah Al-Baqarah, 2:258, illustrating the contrast between human arrogance and divine authority. Nimrod's power was nothing compared to the wisdom and truth Allah placed in the heart of a prophet. This debate wasn't just a verbal sparring. It was a profound lesson. No worldly ruler can match Allah's power. Arrogance may blind the heart, but truth always shines brighter. The smallest act of wisdom and faith can expose the largest empire of lies. Ibrahim's courage and clarity exposed Nimrod's false claim to divinity and set the stage for the king's ultimate humiliation. A lesson for every generation about pride, arrogance, and the undeniable power of Allah. The fire incident, Ibrahim versus Nimrod. After Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, boldly challenged the idols and exposed Nimrod's false claims, the tyrant's anger reached its peak. His pride could not endure being contradicted, humiliated, and outwitted by a mere man. In his rage, he commanded the most terrifying punishment imaginable. A massive fire was built. So intense that the flames seemed to lick the sky. The heat was unbearable. The crowd watched in fear. Soldiers gathered, ready to witness the destruction of the man who had dared to defy their king. Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, was bound and placed in the heart of the inferno. Smoke filled the sky. Cries of onlookers echoed through the kingdom. The fire roared like a wild beast, ready to consume him. And yet, in that moment of ultimate danger, the impossible happened. Allah commanded, "O fire, be coolness and safety upon Ibrahim." The flames did not burn him. The fire became a shield. The fire became peace. The heat that should have destroyed him instead protected him. The crowd gasped. The soldiers trembled. And Nimrod, the king who claimed to be a god, was left speechless. All his armies, all his wealth, all his power could not touch a man under the protection of Allah. This miracle was a public humiliation for the tyrant. It showed the world that no human, no matter how mighty, can overpower the decree of Allah. The fire incident also marked a turning point. Arrogance is always exposed by divine truth. Power built on oppression and false claims is fragile. Faith, even in the face of death, triumphs over tyranny. Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, emerged unscathed, his faith stronger than ever, while Nimrod's pride and power began its inevitable unraveling. 5. Nimrod's final arrogance and humiliation. Even after witnessing the miraculous protection of Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, in the fire, Nimrod's arrogance did not waver. Pride had blinded him completely. He refused to accept the truth. He refused to humble himself before Allah. Some narrations describe how Nimrod, intoxicated by his ego, boasted that he could even reach the heavens. He believed his armies, his wealth, and his intellect made him untouchable. He thought he could challenge the Creator himself. But arrogance has a way of meeting its match, and often in ways humans never expect. Allah, in his infinite wisdom, chose not to destroy him with armies or storms. Instead, he sent the smallest of creatures, a mosquito. This tiny, seemingly insignificant insect entered Nimrod's body. According to narration, it reached his brain, causing unbearable pain. The mighty king, who had ruled nations and demanded worship, suffered endlessly from the smallest of Allah's creations. For years, he was tormented. Some accounts say he would strike his own head in an attempt to relieve the pain. His vast palaces, his armies, his wealth, all meaningless. His arrogance crumbled before the wisdom and power of Allah. Finally, Nimrod met the fate that all tyrants and arrogant rulers deserve: humiliation and destruction. His story became a timeless warning. Power does not make you divine. Arrogance leads to downfall. Allah's justice is precise, unpredictable, and absolute. The contrast could not be clearer. Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, a man with no throne, no army, no palace, but complete faith in Allah. Nimrod, a man with everything, yet completely powerless against the decree of Allah. And that is the lesson for every generation: the mightiest tyrants can be humbled by the smallest creation if Allah wills it. No matter how high arrogance rises, it always meets the reality of divine justice. The story of Nimrod and Abraham is more than history. It is a timeless reminder of the dangers of pride, the consequences of arrogance, and the unstoppable power of Allah. Nimrod had armies, wealth, and immense authority, yet he was humbled by the smallest of Allah's creations. Ibrahim, may Allah's peace be upon him, had nothing but faith, yet he triumphed over tyranny. From this story, we learn: power is a test, not a guarantee. Arrogance blinds even the most mighty. Faith is the true strength. One person guided by Allah can challenge the world. No one is above divine law. Tyranny, oppression, and disbelief are temporary, Allah's justice is eternal. Humility protects, arrogance destroys. Those who bow to Allah find true safety, those who exalt themselves fall. So, remember this: the world may admire power, wealth, or status, but nothing compares to the protection and wisdom of Allah. No throne, no empire, no army can stand against His will. If this story inspired you, strengthened your faith, or reminded you of the power of Allah, subscribe to the Inspired Muslim. Join a community that revives stories from the Quran and the Prophets, to awaken hearts, inspire reflection, and strengthen Iman. Share this video with someone who needs this reminder today. And never forget, no matter how mighty a tyrant may seem, faith in Allah will always prevail. Allahu Akbar.